We've all seen the pictures, the carefully posed photographs of the Singh family, a monument to tradition and propriety. We see Sahna, the matriarch, her expression a permanent mask of disapproval. We see Anil, the quiet patriarch, a man seemingly lost in his wife's shadow. We see their son, Sumit, face a constant battle between love for his parents and devotion to his American partner, Jenny. We've met two sons, but what if there was another child? Look closer at this old photograph, at the strange empty space beside a young Sumit. A space that feels intentionally vacant, a void in the family portrait that mirrors a much deeper void in the family's heart. What if I told you that space once held the key to understanding everything? A perfect daughter whose ghost has haunted Sahna for decades and poisoned her every relationship. Before we uncover a secret that will change everything you thought you knew about one of 90 Day Fiancé's most controversial figures, I need you to do me a small favor. If you find yourself captivated by what you're about to hear, if you believe in digging deeper past the surface of reality television, then please take a moment to hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. You are not going to want to miss the exclusive theories and insider reports we bring you, and today's story is the biggest one we have ever broken. Trust me, the story of the Singh family is about to be rewritten forever. Now, let's begin. For years, viewers have watched Sahna Singh with a mixture of frustration, anger, and sheer disbelief. Her treatment of Jenny Slatin has been, to put it mildly, monstrous. We've seen the relentless criticism, the public humiliation, the emotional blackmail, and the outright rejection. Sana's list of grievances against Jenny is long and seemingly insurmountable. Jenny is too old. She cannot provide grandchildren. She is not Indian. She doesn't cook or clean to Sahna's standards. She has, in Sahna's eyes, stolen her son and shamed their family name. The narrative presented by the show and accepted by the audience is that Sahna is a rigidly traditional Indian mother, unable to accept a daughter-in-law who so flagrantly defies cultural norms. Her motivations are painted as a simple, if extreme, case of cultural pride and a mother's possessive love for her son. But what if that's not the whole story? What if it's not even the most important part of the story? What if the official narrative is just a cover for a wound so deep, so profound, that the family has conspired to hide it for over 30 years? Our investigation began with a simple question that has always lingered in the background. Why is Sana's reaction so disproportionate? We've seen other traditional families on 90 Day Fiancé. We've seen parental disapproval, cultural clashes, and arguments over age gaps. But Sana's vitriol is on another level. It's not just disapproval. It's a deep, personal, and venomous rejection that seems to emanate from a place of profound, inconsolable pain. Her grief over losing Sumit to Jenny has always seemed more akin to the grief of a death than the displeasure of a disobedient son. The wailing, the threats of disownment, the public displays of agony, they feel primal, almost performative in their intensity, yet undeniably real in their emotional weight. It's a level of despair that a simple disagreement over a marriage partner cannot fully explain. It was this inconsistency, this nagging feeling that a crucial piece of the puzzle was missing, that sent us digging deeper, far beyond the curated scenes of reality television. We started by reaching out to a wide network of contacts, individuals with loose connections to the families featured on the show. For months, we hit dead ends. The Singh family, we were told, is notoriously private, a closed circle that guards its secrets jealously. But then we received a message. It was cryptic, coming from an anonymous source who claimed to be a distant relative of the Singh family, a cousin-in-law twice removed, someone who had grown up hearing the hushed whispers at family gatherings. The source was hesitant, terrified of repercussions, but felt compelled to speak after watching years of what they called Sana's unforgivable cruelty toward Jenny. They said, "To understand the cruelty, you must first understand the tragedy. You are looking at the branches, but the poison is in the root." Over a series of carefully arranged, encrypted calls, the story began to unfold. It was a bombshell, a piece of family history so traumatic that it had been deliberately erased, spoken of only in hushed tones by the oldest generation, and completely unknown to the public. According to our source, years before the world ever met Sumit and Jenny, Sahna and Anil Singh were not the parents of two sons. They were the parents of three children, two sons and a daughter named Anjali. The name itself, meaning divine offering, speaks to how she was viewed. Angelie, our source explained, was the family's jewel. She was the firstborn, a child of breathtaking beauty and, more importantly in Sahna's eyes, of flawless obedience. While her brothers were boisterous and energetic, Anjali was serene and graceful. She was the perfect embodiment of every traditional virtue Sahna held dear. She learned to cook complex traditional meals by the age of 10, her small hands expertly kneading dough for roti. She could drape a sari with an elegance that women twice her age envied. Her voice, our source said, was like a songbird, and she would sing devotional bhajans that would bring tears to the eyes of the elders. In Sahna's world, a world built on the foundations of tradition, reputation, and patriarchal structure, Anjali was more than just a daughter. She was a vindication. She was proof of Sahna's success as a mother, as a woman, and as a keeper of their culture. Anil adored her, but for Sahna, Anjali was a reflection of her own idealized self. She was the daughter who would never question, never rebel, never bring shame upon the family. She would make a perfect marriage, unite two powerful families, and continue the legacy that Sahna valued above all else. Anjali was Sahna's masterpiece, and then in an instant, the masterpiece was shattered. The details are murky, clouded by the passage of time and the heavy veil of family secrecy. What our source pieced together from fragmented conversations overheard throughout the years is a story of sudden tragic loss. Anjali, at the tender age of 12, fell ill. It started as a simple fever, a common childhood ailment that was initially dismissed. But the fever didn't break. Within days, it had blossomed into a severe, aggressive infection. The family prayed, they made offerings, they brought in doctors, but nothing worked. Anjali, the perfect, beautiful, divine offering, passed away. The source described the aftermath as a deafening silence. Sahna did not just grieve, she fractured. The light in her eyes, the softness in her voice, it all vanished. She locked away every photograph of Anjali, packed away her clothes, and forbade her name from ever being spoken in the house again. It was a complete and total erasure. To the outside world, and eventually, within the walls of their own home, it was as if Anjali had never existed. Sahna and Anil would be known as the parents of two sons. The void in the family portrait became a void in their history. This is the ghost that haunts the Singh family. This is the secret that unlocks the mystery of Sahna's seemingly incomprehensible behavior. Because when you re-examine every scene, every argument, every tearful confrontation through the lens of this hidden tragedy, a chilling and heartbreaking pattern emerges. Sahna is not looking for a daughter-in-law for Sumit. She has been, for 30 years, trying to replace the daughter she lost. And no living, breathing, imperfect human being could ever hope to fill that role, especially not a fiercely independent, older American woman like Jenny. The ghost of Anjali is the third person in Sumit and Jenny's marriage, an invisible and unbeatable rival. Let's dissect the evidence. Consider Sahna's obsession with tradition. We see it as a rigid adherence to culture, but it's something far more personal and painful. Anjali was the pinnacle of that tradition. Her mastery of cooking, her modest dress, her respectful demeanor, these were not just cultural values, they were the defining characteristics of the lost child. When Sahna criticizes Jenny's inability to cook a perfect Indian meal, she is not just criticizing Jenny. In her mind's eye, she sees the ghost of her 12-year-old daughter effortlessly preparing the same dish. Every culinary failure on Jenny's part is not just a mistake, it is a desecration of a sacred memory. It's a painful reminder that this strange foreign woman is in the kitchen where her perfect Anjali should have been. Think about Sahna's constant refrain. What will people say? On the surface, it's about social standing and reputation. But dig deeper. The death of a child is a profound trauma for any family. But in some traditional communities, it can also be a source of deep, unspoken shame. It's a crack in the facade of a perfect, blessed family unit. After Anjali's death, Sahna's obsession with maintaining a flawless public image would have become a desperate coping mechanism. She couldn't control the tragedy that befell them, but she could control every other aspect of their public life. Jenny's arrival shatters that carefully constructed facade. Her age, her nationality, her previous marriage, they are not just social inconveniences, they are public announcements of the family's imperfection, dredging up the very feelings of shame and failure that Sahna has spent a lifetime suppressing. Jenny, by her very existence in their family, makes it impossible to pretend they are the perfect, unblemished unit they once were, before tragedy struck. And what about the most significant issue of all, Jenny's age and her inability to have children? We've always assumed this was about Sahna's desire for a legacy, for grandchildren to carry on the family name. That is certainly part of it, but a more profound psychological driver is at play. Angelie died as a child. She is forever frozen in time as a perfect, beautiful 12-year-old. She never aged, never developed flaws, never disappointed her parents. Jenny, a woman in her 60s, is the stark, living embodiment of everything Angelie was not. She represents a life lived, a life of experience, independence, and choices made outside of the Singh family's control. She is a constant, walking, talking reminder of the aging process and the life that Angelie never got to have. Every wrinkle on Jenny's face is a testament to the years her own daughter was denied. Furthermore, Jenny's inability to provide a grandchild isn't just about the lack of a new baby, it's about the inability to provide a replacement. In Sahna's grief-stricken mind, a new child, a granddaughter perhaps, could have been a chance for a do-over, a chance to raise a girl in Angelie's image, to pour all that frustrated love and shattered hope into a new vessel. Jenny's biology makes that replacement impossible, closing the door forever on a fantasy Sahna may have secretly harbored for decades. Jenny doesn't just deny Sahna a grandchild, she denies her the reincarnation of her lost daughter. This theory also reframes Sahna's relationship with her son, Sumit. Her seemingly suffocating, controlling grip on him is not just about a mother's love. It's about terror. Having already lost one child in the most traumatic way imaginable, the thought of losing her remaining son is an unbearable prospect. In her mind, Sumit choosing Jenny is not just an act of defiance. It is a second abandonment. It is a replay of the trauma of loss. The universe, or fate, or God, took her daughter. Now this American woman is taking her son. This is why her reactions are so extreme. This is why she speaks in terms of life and death, of disownment and unbearable pain. She isn't just losing a son to marriage. In her traumatized psyche, she is reliving the single most devastating event of her life. Her emotional blackmail is a desperate, flailing attempt to prevent that trauma from repeating. She is a woman trapped in a loop of grief, and she will do anything, say anything, to stop the wheel from turning towards loss one more time. Let's look at the family dynamic. Anil, the father, has always been a figure of quiet compliance. He seems to disapprove of Jenny, but lacks Sahna's fiery rage. Why? Because he too is a victim of this tragedy, but he processes his grief differently. Our source suggests that Anil's silence is part of the pact he made with his wife 30 years ago. He buried his own grief to support Sahna, to maintain the fragile peace of their home. He agreed to the erasure of Angelie's memory because he saw the way it was destroying his wife. His passivity is not weakness. It is a long-standing act of protection. He allows Sahna to lead the charge against Jenny because he understands on a level no one else can, that her rage is a shield for her pain. He won't cross her, not because he is afraid of her, but because he is afraid of the bottomless well of sorrow that her anger holds at bay. He is, in his own tragic way, a gatekeeper of his wife's arrested grief. Think back to the astrologer. The family places immense faith in his proclamations. Initially, this seems like a cultural quirk, a way to justify their disapproval, but seen through the lens of Angelie's death, it takes on a much darker significance. When a child dies suddenly and inexplicably, it shatters one's sense of control over the universe. It's a chaotic, meaningless event. Astrology, in contrast, offers order. It suggests that everything is preordained, written in the stars. For Sahna, a favorable astrological chart isn't just about a happy marriage for Sumit, it's a desperate plea for cosmic reassurance. It's a way of ensuring that tragedy will not strike again. An astrologer who disapproves of the match is not just giving an opinion, he is validating Sahna's deepest fear, that this union with Jenny is cosmically wrong, that it invites chaos and bad fortune, the very same forces that stole her daughter from her. Her adherence to the astrologer's word is a desperate attempt to regain control in a universe that has already proven to be cruel and capricious. This secret daughter theory is not an excuse for Sahna's behavior. The cruelty she has inflicted upon Jenny is real and deeply damaging. But it is an explanation. It pulls back the curtain on a family tragedy so profound that it has warped every interaction, every decision, for more than 3 decades. The woman we see on our screens is not just a meddling mother-in-law. She is a woman perpetually frozen in the worst moment of her life, lashing out at a world that she perceives as a constant threat. Jenny Slatton did not just marry Sumit Singh, she unwittingly stepped into the epicenter of a 30-year-old earthquake, a fault line of grief running directly through the heart of the Singh family. She is not fighting with her mother-in-law over cultural differences. She is fighting the ghost of a perfect child she never knew. It's a ghost she's fighting, not a person. And that's a battle Jenny can never, ever win. The impossible standards, the constant criticism, the refusal to accept her, it was never about Jenny at all. It was always about Anjali. Let that sink in for a moment. Every tear, every insult, every venomous glance we have ever seen from Sahna Singh has not been directed at the 60-year-old American woman standing in front of her. It has been directed at a ghost. Jenny is merely a placeholder for Sahna's rage, a convenient target for a pain that has been festering in the dark for over 30 years. Now, with this devastating new context, let's become detectives. Let's revisit the evidence we've seen with our own eyes on the show, and you will see how the ghost of Angelie has been hiding in plain sight all along. Remember the explosive storyline when Sana and Anil decided to move in with Sumit and Jenny? It was framed as a last-ditch effort to teach Jenny their ways, to see if she could possibly measure up. But it was never a lesson. It was an inquisition. And the heart of that inquisition was the kitchen. Sana's obsession with the kitchen was relentless. She criticized Jenny's methods, her cleanliness, her ingredients. Nothing was ever right. We saw this as a clash of cultures, an Indian mother-in-law asserting dominance. But we were wrong. That kitchen was not just a room for cooking. For Sana, it was a shrine. It was the room where her perfect 12-year-old daughter, Angelie, had once created culinary magic. It was a space filled with the ghost of laughter, the scent of spices expertly blended by tiny hands, the memory of her perfect child. When Jenny entered that kitchen, with her American ways and her different techniques, she wasn't just cooking dinner. In Sana's warped perception, she was desecrating a holy place. She was trampling on the memory of Angelie. Every dish Jenny made that wasn't up to snuff wasn't just a failed meal. It was a personal insult to the memory of the daughter who could do it perfectly. Sana's manic cleaning and reorganizing wasn't about hygiene. It was a frantic, desperate attempt to scrub away Jenny's presence and restore the kitchen to the way it was when her perfect daughter was still alive. She was trying to cleanse the shrine of an intruder. Consider the so-called lessons. Sana would stand over Jenny, instructing her, her voice dripping with condescension. But she was never trying to teach. She was setting a series of impossible exams for which Jenny was doomed to fail. The true examiner was not Sana. It was the idolized memory of Anjali. Could Jenny drape a sari with the innate grace of a girl born to it? No. Strike one. Could Jenny anticipate the needs of the household with the silent intuition Sahna expected? No. Strike two. Could she produce a perfectly round roti on her first try, a skill that takes years to master? Of course not. Strike three. These weren't lessons in housekeeping. They were loyalty tests to a ghost. Each of Jenny's failures served to reinforce Sahna's internal narrative. You see, this woman is worthless. She is not my Anjali. She is not even a shadow of my Anjali. It allowed Sahna to justify her cruelty, to tell herself that her rejection of Jenny wasn't born of grief, but of legitimate, objective standards that this woman simply could not meet. Now, let's analyze the family dynamics, particularly with Sumit's brother, Amit, and his wife. The show presents their relationship as the acceptable alternative. They had an arranged marriage, they are both Indian, they have children. They are the model of tradition that Sumit rejected. Yet, have we ever seen Sahna exhibit genuine, soul-deep warmth and acceptance towards Amit's wife? We see polite familial affection, we see approval, but we do not see the profound, all-consuming love and pride that a mother feels for a perfect daughter. Why? Because even Amit's wife, a woman who has done everything right, is not Angelie. She may be a satisfactory substitute, a decent understudy, but she can never be the original star of the show. She is a constant, living reminder that even the perfect choice is still a replacement. This is why Sahna's grief and rage are so laser-focused on Jenny. Amit's wife is a quiet, acceptable stand-in. Jenny, on the other hand, is a loud, flamboyant, and utterly foreign intruder who bears zero resemblance to the lost daughter. She is the ultimate symbol of what Sahna has lost, and a constant trigger for the trauma. This tragedy also forces us to re-examine Sumit himself. His entire personality is a product of this hidden grief. Why is he so desperate to please everyone? Why does he go to such great lengths, including years of lies and deception, to avoid direct confrontation with his mother? Because Sumit did not grow up in a normal household. He grew up in a mausoleum of unspoken sorrow. He witnessed his mother's spirit shatter, and as a young boy, he likely took on the impossible burden of trying to make her happy again. His entire life has been a delicate dance around his mother's fragile emotional state. He learned from a very young age that certain topics, certain truths, were forbidden. He learned that his mother's happiness was paramount, and that anything that threatened it must be hidden. His catfishing of Jenny, while inexcusable, now takes on a new psychological dimension. It was not just a simple lie. It was an act of a man who has lived his life in a pressure cooker of familial expectation and silent sadness, creating a fantasy world where he could be free. And in choosing Jenny, a woman so completely opposite to everything his family stood for, he was, on a subconscious level, choosing someone who could never, ever be mistaken for a replacement for his lost sister. It was an act of rebellion, yes, but also perhaps a deeply buried act of protection. By choosing the most unsuitable partner imaginable, he ensured that no woman would ever have to bear the impossible weight of competing with Angelie's ghost. His lies to his parents about Jenny were not just the actions of a man afraid of disapproval. They were the actions of a child terrified of causing the crack in his mother's heart to split wide open again. He knew instinctively that revealing his relationship with Jenny would not just cause an argument. It would trigger a deep, primal trauma within his mother. He was not just hiding a girlfriend, he was trying to contain a 30-year-old nuclear bomb of grief that he knew his mother was sitting on. Every lie, every evasion was his desperate, misguided attempt to manage his mother's pain, a role he has been playing since he was a small boy. When Sahna wails and threatens to disown him, declaring that he is dead to her, she is not just being dramatic. For a woman whose child has literally died, the threat of losing another one, even symbolically, feels identical. In her mind, the pain is the same. Sumit's betrayal feels like a second death, a second child being ripped away from her. This brings us to the reckoning, the moment that ties this entire tragic theory together. Our source revealed that there was a confrontation, away from the prying eyes of the television cameras, that changed everything. It happened late one night, after a particularly brutal day of filming, where Sahna had been relentlessly cruel to Jenny. Sumit, at the absolute end of his rope, finally broke down. He didn't yell. He spoke with a quiet, heartbreaking exhaustion. He asked his mother the question that had been burning inside him his entire life. The question that was the subtext of every argument they had ever had. "Why, mother?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Why is no one ever good enough? We do everything we can. I try so hard. Amit has a good wife. Why is there still this anger in you? Why will no one ever, ever be good enough for you?" And in that moment, in the safety of their own home, with the emotional armor stripped away, the dam of 30 years of suppressed grief finally broke. Sahna looked at her son, her eyes not filled with anger, but with a bottomless, ancient sorrow, and she spoke the 5 words that explained everything, the 5 words that were the key to the entire family tragedy. She confessed, her voice barely a whisper, "No one is good enough because no one can be her." Her, the forbidden pronoun, the ghost who had been unnamed for 3 decades. In that single sentence, the truth was finally spoken aloud. The secret that had poisoned their family from the inside out was finally brought into the light. It wasn't about Jenny's age. It wasn't about grandchildren. It wasn't about culture or tradition or what the neighbors would say. It was about a beautiful 12-year-old girl named Angelie, frozen in time, whose perfection could never be matched by any living woman. It was about a mother's heart that had stopped beating the day her daughters did, and had been replaced by a cold, hard stone of grief. This confession does not absolve Sahna. It does not erase the years of emotional abuse she has heaped upon Jenny or the manipulative control she has exerted over Sumit. But it finally, tragically, explains it. We have been watching a woman who is not a monster, but a victim trapped in a state of arrested grief, so consumed by a past loss that she is incapable of accepting any future happiness for her son if it doesn't fit the fantasy of the life that was stolen from her. She wasn't just losing a son to a new wife. In her mind, she was being forced to witness the ghost of her perfect daughter be replaced by an imperfect, older, foreign woman. It was a daily, unbearable reminder of her greatest loss. The cruelty we saw was the desperate lashing out of a drowning woman, trying to pull everyone else under her because the pain of her own sorrow was simply too much to bear alone. The ghost in the Singh family finally has a name, and with that name comes a heartbreaking new understanding of this entire saga. She wasn't just losing a son, she was reliving the loss of a daughter. This is a heartbreaking twist that reframes everything we thought we knew. Does this change your opinion of Sahna? It doesn't excuse her actions, but does it change your understanding of her pain? Let's have a compassionate discussion in the comments. This is a story about the devastating long-term impact of hidden grief, and it's a story that deserves to be shared.